Hello, good afternoon, lovely viewers. It's another exciting episode on Pious Football where we bring you the latest transfer stories around football, and also we discuss tactical analysis of games and pertinent issues around football that you don't usually hear around sports outlets in Europe. Now, let's just go right in. I'm on an upbeat mode this afternoon because of some good news coming in that Edwin van der Sar is now out of life-threatening danger. I remember in my previous episode, I spoke about the fact that Edwin van der Sar had been admitted to intensive care for a brain hemorrhage whilst he was in holiday in the Alps in Switzerland. But the good news is that his wife has actually come out with a press conference yesterday to inform everyone that he's out of life-threatening danger, although he still remains in intensive care, but his condition is now deemed to be in stable situation, and so we will be monitoring and hopefully praying that Edwin van der Sar will be out of danger and he will be coming back to football pretty soon. Now, also staying in Holland, the Dutch midfielder that we bought from Ajax, Manchester United's midfielder Van de Beek, he was injured prior to the end of the season, somewhere around March of this year. He couldn't contribute much this season in terms of appearances because of muscle injuries that he's had consistently, which has kind of been the highlight of his career at Manchester United. The guy is hugely talented, but we know that his injuries is one of the reasons why he is not being able to succeed in Manchester United. Now, information that are reaching me this afternoon is that his agent has actually been busy speaking to a host of clubs, and I'm told that some clubs in Italy especially are very much interested in Van de Beek, and they are currently looking through their documents to see how they can assess signing Van de Beek. Remember, he came in for a price of around 40 million euros, so Manchester United will be looking to recoup a sizable amount of that money, although there will be losses incurred, but Italian clubs are monitoring the situation to see if a loan move or a straight buyout would be possible. But EPL clubs like Crystal Palace and I am told West Ham are also trying to see if they can sign Van de Beek. So fingers crossed for Van de Beek to Italy. I think that would be a good move for him, considering that his career at Manchester United never really took off from the beginning. Also, I would like to talk about something that I spoke in my earlier episode about the greedy presidents. Some presidents who are trying to, hold their players to ransom and take some sort of money that I deem to be unreasonable. And one of the key figures in this sort of greed circle is Napoli president Aurelio DeLorientez. You remember this president is a very tough negotiator, much like Daniel Levy. He always wants to get the most of transfer fees from his players. Remember Gonzalo Higuain going to Juventus for around 90 million euros back then. It was a huge figure. Now, we all know that every club, most of the top clubs in Europe are looking to sign Victor Osimhen. However, just this yesterday, I think in the evening, late evening, Aurelio DeLorientez granted an interview to a journalist, and he said, according to him, that Osimhen would only go for 200 million euros, and he he was explicit in his speech that only one club he believes can afford that amount of money, and that is Paris Saint-Germain. So he is challenging PSG that if they really want Osimhen, they would have to cough up 200 million euros. Now, that is absolutely crazy amount of money. That is probably around 150 to 160 million pounds for Victor Osimhen. Now, I know that a host of other clubs have already, decided to look elsewhere because Osimhen has been priced out of the market. Now, you remember my story yesterday. I spoke about Lazio's president trying to get the most out of Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. He had offers for 60 million euros, 80 million euros. He rejected all those offers and maintained he wanted 100 million euros. Now, the interest in the player actually went down, and now he's been sold for 40 million euros to a Saudi club, Al Hilal. So I hope that Aurelio DeLorientez will not regret his this amount of money that he has put on Victor Osimhen. Now, if I am the player and his agent, I'll be pushing the president to lower his demands so that I can make that all-important move for my career. But as things stand, it looks like Osimhen might probably be staying in Italy for another season. Now, also, I'd like to talk about Barcelona. We know that the goalkeeper Andre ter Stegen won the I think the Zamora Trophy, which is kind of the clean sheet best goalkeeper award in Spain. And I think he had 26 clean sheets in total, which was very impressive. And now we are hearing that Barcelona are actually in negotiations to try and tie him down to a long-term contract. Mind you, he's 31 years old, and they are offering him a 5-year contract. So it means that he will be there till I think somewhere in around 2028, if I'm being correct. And that means that any other club that was interested in ter Stegen would have to forget about him, because the player is happy to stay with Barcelona. He's been very impressive. Remember, as a young player coming up in Germany with Borussia Mönchengladbach, I had my eyes on him. I thought Manchester United would bid for him back in the day when De Gea, the rumors about De Gea going to Real Madrid, started coming in. But fortunately for us, Louis van Gaal saved the day and kept De Gea at Manchester United. So ter Stegen moved to Barcelona, and now he's been successful, hugely successful, and probably he's going to be the number one keeper for German national team, since Ballon d'Or, has suffered an injury and he's still in the process of recovering. So ter Stegen right there, I think, is one of the top goalkeepers in Europe. So it's almost makes sense that Barcelona will want to keep him and try and renew his contract. So 5-year contract coming in for Marc-Andre ter Stegen right there, which is a good move for Barcelona. Now, still at Barcelona, this one is not good news for Barcelona. You remember I told you, I spoke earlier on, that they are sort of struggling to register players due to their huge wage bill and their struggling financial crisis going on there. So news coming in that since yesterday is that Barcelona have only managed to register only 13 players. Now remember, every club, whatever you are, if you are a professional club under a professional league body, you have to register all your players. Now, in Spain, there is a salary cap for all players in terms of how much money you can actually have in terms of registration of players. Now, in Barcelona, they have exceeded this cap. So for now, it is said that at the Spanish Football Association, Barcelona have only registered 13 players. Only 13 players have been registered. And news coming in is that since last season, actually, Sergio Roberto and a host of other clubs, other players whose contracts were extended, are still not yet registered for this season. If you renew a player's contract for a sizable number of years, the following season you have to re-register the player because there's been a change in contract. But for now, the news we are getting is that Barcelona has only been able to register only 13 players, and that Sergio Roberto and I think one or two other players are still, first team players actually are still not being registered. Frank Kessie is still not registered yet, and then also the incoming players Gundogan and I think Inigo Martinez from Atletico Bilbao. Remember, he is a centre back. They bought him this season for the summer, and also coming in Gundogan. They are still not registered yet, so Barcelona are still struggling to register some of their players. Remember, there was a sort of issue with Gavi's registration last season. There was the Javier Tebas, the Spanish Football Association president, came out to say that Barcelona do not have the the money to register Gavi, but the case went to court because Juan Laporta, the Barcelona president, disagreed. He thought that everything, including the paperwork, was done the right way, and so the matter is actually still in court. The Spanish court ruled that Tebas was right, that Gavi should not have been registered. So the matter has actually been moved to the Court of Arbitration for Sports. So we are still at an impasse with the Gavi contract registration there. But for now, right now, Barcelona would have to work on trying to register all his players, because the way things are going, if they don't do that, it's going to be challenging. But I'm sure that the revenue is going to come in after the end of July. So hopefully that will help Barcelona register the players that they are struggling to register as things stand. Now, I would like to talk about something that I promised in my last episode. A history of Israeli Football Association. That before I go to that story, I want to talk about Manchester United. Manchester United, I almost forgot. Manchester United are playing Leeds United in Norway as part of our first preseason game. Team news came in late afternoon yesterday. Marshall is out with an injury as usual. Greenwood is not part of the team. So in the striker department, we are very lightweight. But we have one of the promising names in the academy joining the striking department in the name of Mark Hugill. Mark Hugill is a very tall, lanky guy. I remember this chap news about him when we bought him from Sunderland for I think £1.5 million somewhere I think 4 years ago. 2019-2018 season. Joe Hugill has been developing very well, and I'm hoping that this preseason he would actually show himself, and then we'll be able to see whether he would be a future at Manchester United. Also, we are looking at midfielders like Hansen Aroyn. Now, Hansen Aroyn is a Norwegian, so he will be back to his homeland. This chap is very talented. I will not be mentioning his name if he wasn't good. I mean, a lot of chaps, youngsters from the academy have been included in the 21 team squad going to Norway. And also we have in defense Will Fish, also a promising defender, a young lad coming through. Hopefully, if our issues with the defense is going to cause problems, I think Will Fish will be an alternative for us. So yeah, we'll be playing Leeds United. So tomorrow in my episode, we will discuss the tactics of the game. Mason Mount is part of the team. So hopefully I know that we will have chances to showcase him to the fans, and then people will see how Mason Mount will be deployed in our midfield. And so going forward, the game will be at 4 p.m. this afternoon. So I hope everybody will be able to watch. But tomorrow I will discuss the tactics behind the game that will happen today. And also, I would like to end this episode by delivering on my promise and talking about the history of Israeli Football Association and the rise of Israeli football and the talents that are now rising from Israeli football. Now, the Israeli Football Association actually began somewhere in 1928. Now, remember that the history about Israel has been one of political up and down, anti-Semitism throughout. Israel is a nation that is surrounded by hostile Arab nations, and prior to I think after the end of the First World War, which brought about the end of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire controlled that area in Israel, the Holy Land. Now, after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, there was a British mandate, because the British, as part of the winners of the war, they took over the majority of the land in Israel. And so there was a British mandate in the land of Israel. And so a lot of the football around that time was brought in by British soldiers who came in there, were serving there as officers. So they were playing football. They were organizing local, football teams around the area. But officially, there are two names that are very notable when it comes to the development of Israeli football, and one is a British Zionist by the name of Sir Alfred Mond. Sir Alfred Mond, and also another guy who was instrumental in rallying football to making it very official in the Holy Land was a Russian Jew by the name of Yasil Yakolev. If I have the name well, it's Yasil Yakolev, and he was instrumental with Sir Alfred in trying to organize football in the Holy Land. Initially, they planned to organize a competition between the Jewish clubs and British clubs. So Sir Alfred Mond, with his influence that he had in football in the area, tried to contact some clubs in the UK to try and play a tournament. Now this tournament was called the Mond Cup, and Maccabi Tel Aviv, Hapoel Tel Aviv, Hapoel Haifa, and Maccabi Jerusalem were some of the clubs that 4 clubs that were organized to go and play the Mond Cup in the UK. However, there were a lot of administrative backlogs and sort of bickering between the 4 clubs. A lot of misunderstandings between the 4 clubs led to the cancellation of the tournament. Now, because of the cancellation, this sort of gingered or sort of caused a rouse among many of the football administrators in Israel to try and form a unified administrative front. Because previously there was nothing like an Israeli Football Association, so they decided to form one. And I think in 1927 to 1928 they started talking, and then the Eretz Israel Football Association was formed, and they played their first full season in the 1927-1928 season, and then after that, in 1929, I think 6 July 1929, the Israeli Football Association was formed and was formally recognized by FIFA. Now, it is noted that they played their first official game, although it was a friendly, with the United States Olympic team, which they lost by 3-1. Now, in 1934, they played their first World Cup qualifier game against Egypt. Home and away, they lost 7-1 and 4-1 respectively. But since then, they've been playing a host of games, friendlies, because they were still an amateur team as at that time. Now, in they sort of went off, especially in football in Europe, went off because of the rise of the Second World War. So I think football came back after 1945, but in Israel, they had to fight for independence. So the War of Independence, the War of 1948, they couldn't play much football, but they came back in 1954. They played their first World Cup qualifier game in 1954. They couldn't qualify for the World Cup during that time. There were sort of bickering between the Arab nations, because of the War of 1948. The Arabs were very angry by the presence of Israel in the Holy Land. So, there was a sort of campaign against Israel by Arab nations. Egypt, Israel was paired with Egypt, Sudan, and I think one Asian country. Back in those days, that was how the qualifiers was played. Sudan, Egypt, and one Asian country, and they all decided not to play against Israel. So Israel was given, the nod to play the qualifiers. If you abscond a game under FIFA rules, the points will be given to the team that decided to play, but according to the FIFA rules as at the time, Israel could not be allowed to qualify for the World Cup without even playing a single game. So they were actually paired with a South American team, Colombia. Unfortunately for them, Colombia beat them, and so Israel couldn't qualify for the 1954 World Cup. Now, they also played a host of qualifiers. They played in the 1962 qualifiers. They played in the 1966 qualifiers, but they were not able to qualify in those competitions. Now, the first time Israel actually, played in a tournament was when they were admitted, I think, in 1958. They were, I think, 1954. Sorry, they were admitted to the Asian Football Championship, the Asian Football Confederation, and so the first tournament that they ever qualified to play for was in 1964, where they played the Asian Football Championship, and in the final they won their first international cup international tournament in 1964 when they won, I think, 1-0 against South Korea. So I mean, from the year 1964 to somewhere around 1974, which many call it the golden decade, was the rise in Israeli football, where Israel, began to play and do well in a lot of tournaments that they were playing there. I mean, they also played in the 1960. I think 1967. No, I think 1968. It was the 1968 Asian Championship final where they, played against Iran. They lost 1-0 in that game, but they have been doing well throughout that, that decade. They also qualified for the first time for the World Cup in 1970, which was hosted by Mexico. They were paired in a group with Sweden, with Uruguay and Italy. It was a very tough group. Uruguay are twice winners of the World Cup, and then Sweden was the winner of the was the host of the 1958 World Cup. They were finalists of the 1958 World Cup, and also Italy were already two-time winners in 1930 and 1934. So I mean, Israel was in a very tough group, but unfortunately for them, they were unable to qualify from that group. But it showed how Israel football had come in the face of a lot of political interference in their football by their Arab neighbors. Now, that led to what I'm going to talk about next is 1974. The Asian Football Association banned Israel from competing in their zone because of a request by Kuwait. Kuwait launched a protest against Israel to sort of dismiss Israel from the association, and much of it was basically political and sort of underlining anti-Semitism. Remember, in 1967 there was a 6-day war, and also in 1973 there was the war in October, or the Yom Kippur War, and the ban in 1974 was as a result of the political aftermath of the 1973 war, or the Yom Kippur War, where many of the Arabs felt that the United Nations partition and peace plan that was given to Israel was unfair to the Arabs. So they decided to sort of fight that peace plan. So one of those ways that they thought they could get back at Israel was to dismiss Israel from the Asian Football Championship. So from that time onwards, football in Israel really began to go down. Israel seemed to be a sort of nomad in Israeli in world football. They joined the Oceanic Football Organization, UFO. That was where they were playing most of their qualifiers from, but they were still unable to qualify because in those days the Oceanic group had to play a playoff with the South Americans. I think it is still done till today. The winner of the Oceania group had to play a playoff game with a South American club, and so they were unable to qualify for the World Cup from that time onwards. Now, going forward to the 1990s, when the Cold War came to an end and a lot of political engagements between the Arab nations and Israel began to cool off, that was when Israel actually had the opportunity to come back into world football. They were allowed to join the UEFA European Championship UEFA body, and from 1994 FIFA actually endorsed them to now become part of UEFA. Now that is why up till now Israel plays its qualifiers as part of UEFA and not part of the Asian Confederation. Now, coming back to the rise of Israeli football, I mean, from the 90s they've been growing, but it's been steady progress. Like I said, because of political interference in the region, it has been very difficult for them. However, in the recent tournaments, the under 23 European Championship that just ended. They were in the semi-final. Pardon me for the sound. It's very tough out here. It's raining outside, so the noise coming in is actually from the rain. So pardon me for that. They were, in the semi-finals of the under 23 European Championship. They were also in the final of the under 20, under 19 European Championship, and also they were recently in the semi-final. They won the bronze medal. They came third in the recent under 20 World Championship held in Argentina. So I mean, if you can see, Israel has been growing from there. Some players have been coming in. I remember I mentioned Mano Solomon. Now there is also a player called Liam Abeda. Liam Abeda plays for Celtic. He plays for Celtic. He's a right winger. He's very good, very quick. He was influential in the under 23 tournament that they just played. And also another name that you want to watch out for in Israeli football is someone of the name of Oscar Gluck. Oscar Gluck is a playmaker, an attacking midfielder. He's ambidextrous. He is very good with both feet. He is one of the players who came out as one of the best players in the tournament in the under 19 European Championship just played last year. They were in the final of that championship. So Oscar Gluck is someone who is now playing his straight in the Red Bull Academy system. He's now a first team player at Red Bull Salzburg, and it's one of the names that top European clubs are watching for the future. So big things happening in Israeli football. Politics aside, anti-Semitism aside, they have done their own. They have come up on their own. They are playing at the best of that they can. The organization is going on well. The Israeli Football Association is now at the peak of its abilities, and they are bringing out a lot of talent. And now a lot of big clubs in Europe are now, the scouts in Europe are now focusing their attention on Israel, the Israeli league, Maccabi Tel Aviv, Maccabi Haifa, and all those ones, Apoel and all those ones. They are all doing well, and so I mean it's interesting to see how far the Israeli Football Association and the talents coming out of Israel will go. Like I said, I would like to talk about Manchester United game against Leeds United in my next episode. So I hope that United will win, but it's not really about winning. We want to see how much the players have come. The young players, are they good enough for the first team? And also we want to see how Mason Mount is deployed in the midfield. And then we will see tomorrow. We'll discuss the tactics. So yeah, that is all. Have a nice evening. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Pious Football. Sorry. Thank you very much. Bye.